"You want me to be the most despicable Negro in the history of cinema?" And he was like,
Hollywood is home for all sorts of drama, fake smiles, and biased professional relationships between stars. From an incident where another actor almost got physically violent with Jackson, in which crew members had to settle the fight, to an incident ugly confrontation where he caught another co-star mocking him behind his back in front of the crew, Jackson has seen it all.
Beware the toes you step on today, for they may be connected to the ass you have to kiss tomorrow.
For decades, the iconic star of Pulp Fiction and The Avengers has mastered the art of keeping his cool on screen, but behind the scenes, the story is far different. At 76, Jackson is no longer holding back. He has finally revealed the names of 7 actors he absolutely despised working with, people whose egos, actions, or betrayals turned professional collaborations into personal battles. And the truth about these rivalries will leave you stunned, because some of the names are Hollywood legends no one expected to ever clash with the man known as the King of Cool. In this video, you get to find out the 7 actors Samuel L. Jackson hated the most. Let's delve into the list, starting with number 7, Tommy Lee Jones.
Sony, somewhere around 2 years ago, and we began talking about the script and entered into a negotiation.
Few actors in Hollywood command the kind of respect Tommy Lee Jones does. With his stern demeanor, gravely voice, and career-defining roles in films like The Fugitive, Men in Black, and No Country for Old Men, Jones carved out a reputation as a no-nonsense performer who always took charge of his roles. But that commanding style, while praised by critics, often rubbed his colleagues the wrong way. And according to Samuel L. Jackson, working with Jones was less about collaboration and more about survival in the 2011 Sunset Limited film. According to Jackson, the trouble began when Jones attempted to rewrite key dialogue during production, lines that were never his to alter. Jackson, who has long prided himself on respecting the script and the writer's vision, felt completely blindsided. People who were present on set have backed up Jackson's account. One assistant director recalled how Jones would show up with notes scribbled on his script, crossing out lines and inserting his own. According to the crew member, Jones was shifting the weight of the dialogue so the spotlight tilted toward him. Jackson noticed, and he wasn't about to let that slide. What followed was one of the most heated arguments of Jackson's career. According to Jackson, Jones was trying to steal scenes by any means necessary, which he considered one of the worst offenses in professional acting. Eyewitnesses described the confrontation as explosive, Jackson calling out Jones in front of cast and crew, demanding he stick to the script. Other actors who have worked with Jones later sympathized with Jackson's frustration. One veteran co-star, speaking anonymously, described Jones as a brilliant actor, but impossible when he thinks he knows better than the writer. Another industry insider put it even more bluntly. Jackson is not wrong. Tommy's been intimidating people with that gruff attitude for years. But with Jackson, he met someone who wouldn't back down. According to Jackson, the problem wasn't just about lines on a page, it was about respect. You don't rewrite another man's work, and you don't mess with another actor's timing. That's sacred, he reportedly told friends afterward. And to him, Jones crossed both of those lines. The tension between them never fully cooled. Though they completed the project, insiders claim their interactions were kept to a minimum. Crew members even joked that you could cut the air with a knife whenever they stood within 10 feet of each other. For Jackson, the experience gave Jones a place on the short list of actors he truly despised working with. Number 6, John Travolta.
Assured me that it was, because I knew it was a very bold thing to try to pull off. You know, us being each other and we don't look exactly alike. And
when Pulp Fiction hit theaters in 1994, it wasn't just another movie, it was a cultural earthquake. The film revived John Travolta's fading career and elevated Jackson to global superstardom. On screen, their chemistry as Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield was electric, perfectly balancing Travolta's laid-back cool with Jackson's fiery intensity. But behind the camera, their working relationship wasn't always as smooth. During early rehearsals, tensions began to simmer. Travolta, who had been given a second chance in Hollywood after years of box office disappointments, carried himself with a mix of gratitude and insecurity. Jackson, on the other hand, was laser-focused, determined to make the most of a role that he instinctively knew could change his life. According to crew members, it was in this atmosphere of pressure and ego that a confrontation unfolded.
There's a ton of people competing. It's much more difficult to establish yourself.
The incident occurred during a rehearsal of one of their dialogue-heavy scenes. Jackson, known for his meticulous preparation and command of rhythm, was working through the exchanges with precision. Travolta, however, grew frustrated with the intensity. Instead of addressing his concerns quietly, he lashed out. The words he used cut deeper than a simple critique of acting choices. They were personal, sharp, and stung Jackson in front of others. Witnesses described the moment as shocking. The rehearsal room went still, with everyone waiting to see how Jackson would react. According to Jackson, those words really hurt him deeply and remain unforgettable. Jackson, however, didn't erupt. He held himself together, but the damage was done. From that point forward, there was a tension between the two men that never fully disappeared. People who worked on Pulp Fiction have since reflected on that dynamic. Some felt Travolta's outburst came from insecurity, worried about being overshadowed by Jackson's commanding presence. Others believed it was a clash of two very different personalities. Travolta, a product of Hollywood glamour and reinvention, and Jackson, a raw force of talent who had clawed his way up from smaller roles into the spotlight. Though they completed the film professionally, Jackson never forgot that moment. According to him, it was more than just a heated exchange. It was a sign of disrespect in a space where actors are supposed to support one another. Over the years, Jackson has often spoken about respect being the foundation of collaboration. That rehearsal with Travolta, in his mind, crossed the line. On screen, their pairing remains iconic. Off-screen, it left scars that reminded Jackson of the harsh realities of Hollywood. Number 5. Scarlett Johansson.
Right. Everybody in the, so I'll make some kind of technological joke, I guess they've written for me, and everybody's.
Scarlett Johansson rose to Hollywood stardom at an unusually young age. From her breakthrough in Lost in Translation to blockbuster turns in The Island and Lucy, she built a reputation as one of the most versatile actresses of her generation. Admired by audiences and embraced by her colleagues as a sharp, witty presence on set, Johansson was seen as a core part of Marvel's ensemble. Yet, according to Samuel L. Jackson, not every interaction with her was positive. According to Jackson, one of the most disrespectful moments he ever faced on a Marvel set came from Johansson herself. During shooting for one of their films together, Johansson reportedly mocked him behind his back in front of the crew. Even though Johansson claimed it was a mere joke, Jackson said the incident struck him as anything but harmless.
Felt like a big mess, I mean, to be honest, and even on the set, it felt crazy because we all looked.
Witnesses confirmed that Johansson, in a moment of banter, imitated Jackson's distinctive cadence and delivery style. The mimicry, exaggerated for laughs, got a reaction from a few crew members, but the laughter carried an edge. To Jackson, it wasn't light teasing, it was a public undermining of the very qualities that defined his performance. He felt it was a deliberate act that stripped him of respect in front of colleagues. According to Jackson, what made the moment sting even more was the way it spread across the set. Crew members exchanged awkward looks, some unsure whether to laugh, others clearly uncomfortable. The incident painted him, in his view, as a caricature instead of the seasoned veteran who had been carrying weight in Hollywood for decades. Johansson later insisted it was nothing more than playful ribbing. According to those close to her, she tried to explain that she never meant offense, that her intention was simply to lighten the atmosphere. But Jackson was not convinced. According to him, what she called humor was, in fact, a mask for condescension. And for someone who had fought his way through Hollywood, through typecasting, limited opportunities, and a system that had often dismissed him, being mocked by a co-star, no matter how casually, left a bitter taste. Other members of the crew reportedly agreed with Jackson's perspective, privately admitting that Johansson's joke had gone too far. Jackson stated that the incident became one of the defining reasons he never fully embraced Johansson. On screen, they both projected loyalty and unity. Off-screen, however, Jackson never forgot that moment of mockery, an episode that reminded him how thin the line can be between camaraderie and disrespect in Hollywood. Number 4, Bruce Willis.
It is intense. It's almost, you know what, almost too intense.
Right.
Almost a little too intense.
Bruce Willis is one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Willis built his career as the ultimate everyman action hero. Outside the screen, colleagues have described him as stubborn, temperamental, and difficult to work with, and according to Samuel L. Jackson, he experienced that difficult side firsthand. Jackson and Willis worked together on multiple occasions, most famously in Die Hard with a Vengeance 1995 and later in M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable 2000, and its sequel Glass 2019. While audiences loved their chemistry on screen, the fiery, outspoken Jackson playing perfectly against Willis's stoic presence, the truth, according to Jackson, was far less friendly. According to Jackson, the first major conflict arose during Die Hard with a Vengeance. Rehearsals were tense, with Willis allegedly showing little patience for collaborative preparation. Jackson, who came into the project with energy and discipline, felt Willis dismissed his input and carried himself with an air of superiority.
Because everybody knows people that, carries that resentment and anger and all that stuff about.
Crew members later described heated exchanges where Jackson accused Willis of trying to dominate scenes by controlling blocking and pacing, effectively sidelining him. The friction didn't end there. According to Jackson, Willis also had a habit of openly challenging directors, halting production to argue over how scenes should be shot. Jackson, who values efficiency and respect for the crew's time, found this infuriating. At one point, Jackson recalled almost storming off set after a particularly sharp disagreement, refusing to return until tempers cooled. Years later, when they reunited for Unbreakable, Jackson hoped time might have softened things. Instead, according to him, Willis's behavior had only grown more difficult. By then, Willis was known in the industry for being distant and hard to engage with, and Jackson found his lack of enthusiasm for the work insulting. Other cast and crew members supported Jackson's frustrations. Some described Willis as being moody and uninterested, while others said he seemed to resent sharing the spotlight. For Jackson, it wasn't just unprofessional, it was disrespectful to everyone putting their energy into the production. Though both men remained professional enough to finish their projects together, according to Jackson, the respect was never truly there. Number 3, Harvey Keitel.
I didn't like it, thought they were disrespectful, and I won't be disrespected by him or anybody.
Harvey Keitel has long been regarded as one of the toughest actors in Hollywood. Known for gritty performances in Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, and Reservoir Dogs, Keitel carved out a career playing men with volcanic tempers and raw edges. Off-screen, he carried that same intensity into his work, demanding total immersion from himself and those around him. But according to Samuel L. Jackson, Keitel's intensity sometimes boiled over into dangerous territory, and one infamous confrontation nearly turned physical. The two men first crossed paths in Quentin Tarantino's cinematic universe, working together on Pulp Fiction 1994. On screen, their characters never clashed, but behind the scenes, a different story was playing out. According to Jackson, Keitel's method of dominating rehearsals often felt like an attack. Keitel was the kind of actor who wanted total control of the moment, often pushing boundaries to the point of aggression. For Jackson, whose rhythm and style came from precision and control, this approach was not just disruptive, but disrespectful. Jackson shared that the breaking point came during a heated rehearsal when Keitel, frustrated by how the scene was unfolding, confronted him with a level of hostility that shocked the room. Words escalated quickly, and before long, Keitel stepped so close to Jackson that crew members feared a physical altercation was seconds away. "You could feel the room freeze," one staffer later said. Everyone thought Harvey was about to swing. Insiders described Jackson as standing his ground, refusing to back away. He didn't shout, didn't flinch, but the fire in his eyes told Keitel that he wasn't intimidated. A standoff followed, two towering personalities staring each other down, each daring the other to make the first move. According to Jackson, it was one of the closest moments he had ever come to a fight on set. The crew, sensing disaster, stepped in quickly, with the director and producers pulling Keitel back before the situation spiraled.
Events in your youth, so it's a little complicated.
Other cast members would later reflect on Keitel's explosive temperament. Some defended him, saying he approached acting like combat, throwing himself into every confrontation with raw force. Others, however, admitted that his intensity could tip into outright hostility, and in Jackson's case, it went too far. For Jackson, the incident left a mark. Though the two men finished their work professionally, the memory of almost coming to blows with Keitel stayed with him. For Jackson, it wasn't simply a clash of styles, it was a violation of the respect every actor owes his co-star. Keitel's volatility, in Jackson's eyes, had crossed from art into outright aggression. While fans continue to celebrate Pulp Fiction as a masterpiece, few realize how close its set came to unraveling. According to Jackson, his near-violent showdown with Harvey Keitel was a reminder that behind Hollywood's greatest films lie egos, tempers, and battles that never make it to the screen. Number 2, Morgan Freeman.
I think that profiling is still a big problem we have here.
Morgan Freeman is often celebrated as Hollywood's voice of wisdom. With an Oscar-winning career spanning decades, he became the industry's trusted narrator, a calm, measured presence, both on-screen and off. But according to Samuel L. Jackson, not everything about Freeman's approach to roles in Hollywood politics sat well with him. One particular point of friction that Jackson never forgot was Freeman's tendency to lean into the very stereotypes and profiling that Jackson had spent his entire career fighting against. According to Jackson, Freeman often embraced the roles of the wise elder, the soft-spoken voice of reason, a typecasting that the industry adored but which he believed played into safe, stereotypical expectations for Black actors. For Jackson, who built his career on breaking boundaries and demanding complex, powerful characters, this felt like a kind of submission to Hollywood profiling. Jackson reportedly confided that while he respected Freeman's talent, he grew frustrated with how Freeman seemed to play into what white Hollywood executives wanted from Black actors. According to him, Freeman's willingness to take on these roles reinforced the very boundaries that Jackson wanted to tear down. Every time a role like that is accepted, Jackson allegedly told colleagues, it makes it harder for the rest of us to demand something different. The tension grew sharper when conversations about racial profiling in Hollywood came to the forefront. Freeman, who had his own way of addressing such issues, often took a more conciliatory, measured tone. Jackson, however, has always been direct, unflinching, and confrontational when it comes to calling out injustice. According to Jackson, Freeman's softer stance wasn't just a difference in style, it felt like a betrayal of the struggle to dismantle systemic profiling. Crew members, who worked with both men, noticed the divide. One insider explained that Jackson carried himself with fire, insisting on authenticity and fighting stereotypes every step of the way, while Freeman leaned on dignity and calm, often avoiding direct confrontation.
Really have trouble explaining it because I think it's sort of like...
Freeman thought he was keeping doors open by playing the roles he did, while Jackson thought those same roles locked doors for everyone else. According to Jackson, the issue wasn't personal animosity, it was ideological. He admired Freeman's achievements but couldn't ignore the way Hollywood used Freeman's archetypes as an excuse to keep other Black actors boxed into predictable categories. To Jackson, it was another form of profiling. Hollywood holding up Freeman as the ideal Black actor while limiting others who demanded more radical, layered, or confrontational roles. In the end, both men continued to deliver unforgettable performances, but the unease between them remained. According to Jackson, Freeman represented a cautionary tale of how profiling doesn't always come from the outside. It can be reinforced from within, even by those who succeed at the very top. Number 1. Spike Lee.
I'd never seen a Black man. I mean, Melvin and Sweetback.
Spike Lee is one of the most influential names in Hollywood. Lee carved out a reputation as a bold storyteller, unafraid to confront America's deepest racial and social divides. His films didn't just entertain, they sparked conversations, forcing audiences to wrestle with uncomfortable truths. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Samuel L. Jackson was right beside him. Lee gave Jackson some of his earliest career-defining roles, from School Days to the crack addict Gator in Jungle Fever, a performance that earned Jackson a special jury prize at Cannes. For a while, it looked like they were a perfect creative match, but according to Jackson, the relationship soured when Quentin Tarantino entered the picture. Jackson, who had spent years hustling for small roles, found his breakout with Pulp Fiction in 1994. Tarantino's script, sharp and fearless, gave Jackson the kind of dialogue he could electrify. Yet Spike Lee saw something else. Lee publicly criticized Tarantino's heavy use of the N-word in films like Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown, calling it gratuitous and harmful. According to Jackson, this was where things turned personal. He felt that Lee's attacks weren't just about Tarantino's writing, they were about him. Jackson defended Tarantino, insisting that the language reflected the characters, the world they lived in, and that he, as a black man delivering those lines, had no problem with it.
That was a bad look for the Academy, and they had to switch up with more inclusion, get more people.
In Jackson's eyes, Lee's criticisms were less about protecting black culture and more about undermining his success. Spike thought he owned the narrative. Jackson reportedly told colleagues, and if you didn't play it his way, you were against him. Crew members and insiders at the time recall the tension spreading beyond just interviews. Lee and Jackson, once collaborators, now avoided each other. Their creative paths, once aligned, had split into open rivalry. According to Jackson, what made it worse was that Lee seemed to frame him as complicit in Hollywood's exploitation of blackness, just because he refused to condemn Tarantino. That, Jackson felt, was both unfair and insulting. Other voices in Hollywood chimed in. Some sided with Lee, agreeing that Tarantino's scripts leaned too heavily on shock value. Others backed Jackson, pointing out that no one delivered Tarantino's dialogue with more power than him, and that Jackson had the right to choose the roles that elevated his career. For Jackson, what stung most was the sense of betrayal. Spike Lee had given him some of his earliest opportunities, but instead of celebrating his success with Tarantino, Lee turned on him publicly. For Jackson, loyalty mattered, and Lee's criticisms felt like knives in the back. Though years have passed, the fracture was never fully repaired and still hurts Jackson deeply. What are your thoughts? Let's know in the comment section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Like and share.